Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where over the weekend Hollywood looked out at the summer horizon in fear, as it seems that a storm's a-brewing. And there have been rumblings about such a storm for about a week or so now, with many predicting that the summer 2017 box office could be Hollywood's worst in a decade, which seems ridiculous, right? Until you actually look at the release schedule and you realize how underbooked the second half of July and August truly are. I mean, seriously, the last reasonable blockbuster bet is War for the Planet of the Apes, which opens July 14th. And then after that, Dunkirk is supposed to be this summer's Inception, Atomic Blonde, it's Jason Bourne, The Emoji Movie, it's Sausage Party, The Dark Tower, it's Suicide Squad. I mean, who booked the entertainment for this party? And when you see this release schedule, you really look at it, you also have to wonder why Kingsman 2 is stuck in late September when the entire second half of the summer is wide open. How about Blade Runner 2049? I mean, maybe Warner Brothers thinks that could be an awards contender, but they gotta make that money too, particularly after it looks like they're going to lose $150 million at least on King Arthur. And King Arthur was one half of the gray cloud that materialized this weekend and sent a cold box office wind down Hollywood's spine as it seemed that this storm might actually become a reality, with King Arthur and Snatched both opening worse than Hollywood had even been preparing themselves for. And while a lot of people didn't buy tickets to see King Arthur, the movie certainly launched a number of headlines as the trades tried to decide who was to blame for its failure. And spoiler alert, they picked Warner Brothers, which I think is pretty fair, because they're the ones who greenlit a $175 million King Arthur movie that doesn't feature Merlin or Lancelot, is made by a director whose last movie, for the same studio by the way, barely made $100 million worldwide, and stars an actor who's arguably complicit in the demise of Guillermo del Toro's career. Now, I'm sure some of you are angrily defending del Toro and maybe hunt him right now in the comments, but let me remind you that del Toro was just recently thrown off of not one, but two franchises as a director, franchises that he started. So, yeah, Charlie Hunnam was only around for one of those, but I think it's just a basic cloud of misery. And the trades didn't just stop at Warner Brothers' financial foibles, but also highlighted the studio's lack of concern for the stories that they're telling, instead focusing on cranking out installments, and with those later installments seeming less and less likely to ever see the light of day because the foundations for them are so poorly laid. And to be honest, you can see evidence of this throughout Warner Brothers' recent slate of films. And it's really sad, actually, because there's so much potential there. And maybe if a little bit more attention had been paid to the story, we would actually have a Tarzan franchise and a King Arthur franchise and a more sturdy DC franchise, right? I mean, I think they could have an intervention and show these things to the suits at Warner Brothers, and it would be hard evidence to deny. But while talent is very, very important to the success of a film, there's one category of talent specifically that no one is paying attention to in terms of making sure these movies work out and also in who's to blame when they don't, and that's screenwriters. All of the stories about King Arthur, a swarm of them, and not one of them highlights Joby Harold. They don't even mention him in passing as someone who maybe doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Why has no one said, maybe we should downgrade our expectations for Lionsgate's Robin Hood starring Taron Egerton? I can't believe that thing could fall apart because they hired Joby Harold to write it. And then also, how about this? No one has pointed out that Warner Brothers read the script for King Arthur and said, you know what? Let's hand this guy the Flash rewrite. That's just terrifying. And on that note, why does nobody call out Warner Brothers' continued mob loyalty to talent like Joby Harold? Or how about the fact that it makes them continue to hire directors like Zack Snyder and Guy Ritchie? Now, speaking of Ritchie, he and his longtime producing partner Lionel Wigram are also credited as writers on King Arthur. And if I were Disney, I would be looking very hard right now to find any way at all to break that live-action Aladdin contract. They've already gone into casting, but this is such a disaster, I would probably decide to delay Aladdin rather than go forward as is. Now, someone could say, well, hey, look, Bill Condon's resume was pretty shaky going into Beauty and the Beast, and that's true, but at least those Twilight films made bank and satisfied the fandom. And also, Emma Watson insisted, as I'm sure you recall, that Stephen Chbosky, the Perks writer, but also director there, script that film. And I think that was probably a really crucial moment in that film's coming together, that she insisted on that writer. Meanwhile, the guy scripting the live-action Aladdin, John August, is best known for writing Tim Burton's unsuccessful movies. Which Tim Burton screenwriter should we pick? How is the one who writes all the ones that don't work out available? He is, amazingly. Although in Hollywood, he should, be booked because they keep hiring crappy screenwriters. And as our Scripts Matter theme continues, let's take a look at Snatched, where one has to wonder who would ever hire Katie Dippold again after first Ghostbusters and now this. Yes, she's the writer of both. And the answer would be Paul Feig. He would hire her because he's the only one who's hired her so far. He directed, of course, Ghostbusters, and he's produced both these movies. And it's all part of his feminism first mantra. And someone should really ask him if he plans to ride feminism all the way down Dr. Strangelove style, or if he's going to maybe try and get off now and salvage his career. Spy was really good. Katie Dippold had a small supporting role in that. She does cameos in the films as well. But she didn't write it. She didn't touch it, thank God. And also that film was really helped by fabulous comedic turns by Jason Statham and Jude Law. As I said in my review for that film, it's really ideal when men and women are funny together. So anyway, though, I have to add, though, that it's very insulting that Hollywood was so shocked that Snatched beat out King Arthur at the box office, considering how strong recent female comedies have performed. And also, its perfect release date, Mother's Day. I mean, of course it had a strong Sunday. Of course it did. And I saw it on Sunday for Mother's Day. I took my mom, and I have to say, I think this movie has a very healthy life ahead of it in the ancillary market. That's with streaming, playing on airplanes, etc. Because it's a forgettable but fun film. If you enjoy reruns of The New Adventures of Old Christine, you will like Snatched. But by opening noticeably below Trainwreck's debut 2 years ago, it would seem that Amy Schumer has done genuine damage to her career by taking such a strong and aggressive political stance during last year's presidential election. As you might recall, she brought up a Trump supporter on stage and grilled him in front of the entire audience, which caused many people to walk out. Many people, the majority, stayed, but it was a disastrous headline. And not a great video because people filmed it. Now, some of you have said to me, oh, people aren't upset about her politics, Grace. It's because she steals jokes. Well, that's been around for a while now, and it didn't hurt Trainwreck's box office debut. So I think that the political situation is definitely at least a part of what's going on. Now, it's not like Amy Schumer is going to have to disappear and go home. She'll always be able to get work because her name recognition factor is just too strong now. Like Lena Dunham and Chelsea Handler. And when you think about it, they're all so similar that maybe only two of them can survive. So we'll see. By the way, Hollywood's script problem is so bad with movies, but I don't see it getting better anytime soon. Because you might recall during our recent discussion of the writers' strike, while they were working very hard, the union, to get a good deal for TV writers, nothing was being done for film writers. That's right, their own union realizes that they have absolutely no leverage in the film business. And that's because writers are the first on a project and they're the first off. So how can they demand quality when they're too busy apologetically trying to just get paid what they're owed? I think that's the problem, because if you upset the apple cart, they can just go find another screenwriter to replace you, because also, as you can see, they clearly don't care about what they end up getting. Also, I think they should, because they want to build cinematic universes and franchises at this point, but for a while there, and maybe it's hard for them to break the habit, movies were like, haha, I got you opening weekend and surprised you that it's a bad movie. I already have my money, who cares, right? Where a TV show needs you to tune in week after week so they can't pull the rug out from under you like that. But, considering the effect that Rotten Tomatoes has these days, you would think that the movie business would realize that they can't do that anymore either. And TV will continue to have an edge over movies because in the television business, the writer is the most important person on a show, because not only does the writer's room, drive the show, but showrunners are writers, and showrunners are who's in charge of a show. It's like the major producer of a show. It's a very big deal. Now, speaking of the small screen, Amazon's The Wall debuted this weekend on 541 theaters and failed to crack the top 10, capping off a horrible week for streaming service movies, as over at Cannes, where two Netflix movies are in competition, the French Film Festival decided that going forward, such movies cannot compete. Will star power make a difference. Brad Pitt is first up at bat. Adam Sandler, he was a big name for Netflix, a big get, and they insist that his movies do really well on the streaming platform. We'll have to take their word for it because the information is private. But Brad Pitt is a genuine movie star who's popular today, and he, of course, has War Machine debuting at the end of the month, primarily on Netflix, but it will also play in a handful of iPic theaters, so we'll see how that does. Now, as for the rest of the top 10, as expected, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 easily held onto the top spot, falling 57% in its second weekend, which is totally standard in the blockbuster game. And in just 3 weeks, it's closing in fast on the total worldwide haul of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And also it has surpassed Logan to give Disney the top 2 movies of the year domestically to date, and 1 and 3 worldwide. See? Universal continues to be the biggest threat to Disney dominance, not Warner Brothers. But Disney can still sleep easy, at least for now, as Beauty and the Beast is just about $8 million away from joining the top 10 movies of all time, unseating Iron Man 3. Yes, there are so many Disney movies in the $1 billion club that they can't help but take each other out. #Disney problems. And then while both continue to slip in their third weekends, How to Be a Latin Lover and Bahubali 2 can still be proud that they managed to stay in the top 10, joined by new entry Lowriders, a Jason Blum side project spotlighting the Latino community in East LA. But then another India title made news this weekend, box office news, and that's last year's Dangal, which is currently playing in China. And this weekend, it rallied against Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Both had already come out. This was an opening weekend for neither film, but Dangal was able to surpass Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and take first place from it. Guardians had first place last week. And Dangal took in $31.5 million this weekend, bringing its Chinese total up to $60 million, which is enough to make it the second biggest global hit to ever come out of India after Bahubali 2. And then as for this coming weekend, despite solid reviews and a solid overseas start, $42 million, Alien Covenant is still expected to lose ground on Prometheus's $51 million opening back in 2012. But it should still win the weekend, which would be a nice headline. Will it? It presents a real Sophie's choice for the industry. Should they put a positive spin on a number one opening for Alien Covenant to try and give summer 2017 some momentum? Or should they throw chum in the water, right? Clickbait, by saying the Alien franchise is dead? That seems like pretty good clickbait. We'll see what happens. It is really tough because dropping from 51 to like 37 isn't great. Although very encouraging, over the weekend on iTunes, Prometheus was like hovering around number 5 in the top charts. So hopefully that means that a lot of people are getting ready to watch Alien Covenant. So fingers crossed, Ridley, right? All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. Thanks for going over the box office with me. Write your thoughts down below on what you plan to see this coming weekend. Will it be Alien Covenant? Did you watch Prometheus? Did you watch Blade Runner? And you can check out some more videos right now.